We're taking a country drive on a nice little dudes rock getaway with America's manliest podcast, The Pod People.
That's right.
I'm Matisse Van Rossum, the Bro-Roboris.
The Bro-Roboris?
Yeah.
The Bro-Roboris.
Yeah.
Incredible. What are you, Ben?
I'm Ben Sheets, and see, I was going to say I'm the impregnator, but that just sounds wrong. So I'll just say dudes rock.
Dudes rock.
know.
Dudes rock.
Dudes fucking rock. Hello, and I'm... I want my chilies. Baby birth ribs.
Oh, okay. You kind of pulled it out there.
I think I did.
You're getting there.
Baby birth ribs. I'll take it. Well, you know, boys,
Baby birth ribs. With barbecue sauce.
sometimes there's got to be one for just the dudes, right? for the boys.
Yeah, sort of a Russian nesting doll of dudes.
You know, before this episode, we were all boys. Now we are men.
This was truly a boys to men experience.
Truly.
Boys to men.
Motown Philly's back again.
Given birth all over again.
Doing a little East Coast swing. Boys to men going on.
Given birth.
Not too hard.
Not too hard. Not too soft. That's right.
I mean, like, for a sequel to the hit show The Boys, like, I expected them to at least put one of the characters in this movie.
Yeah, you know, when I heard that they were doing a sequel to The Boys, I thought, finally, the boys are growing up.
The boys are back in town.
It's about time. It's about time for them to grow up and become men. But you know what? I didn't see any of the boys in this movie.
Not a single one.
Not a single one.
Not the one with the cape. Not the invisible one.
None of them. Yeah. No. Just a bunch of British dudes with bad teeth.
But also just one dude.
But also it was just one dude.
Talk
a bunch
about
of
a
times.
horror movie. Seeing all those British teeth. Ugh.
Well, we were talking about the new Alex Garland film, Men, that just came out. We just got back from seeing this, and I think we're all...
Meninists now.
Yeah, well,
The movie
I mean,
did it to us.
Certainly, we know that dudes rock.
Dudes
but,
do rock.
I don't know.
Now more than ever.
I feel like we're all still
Reeling.
struggling to process the last 20 minutes of this movie.
I would be worried about recording so soon after this whopper of a goddamn film, but I think I'll still be reeling in a couple of days.
Yeah,
you guys are getting it raw from us this week.
This one's gonna be kind of free form. I think we're all
it
kind
has to be.
I feel like
It
this
fucking has to
movie, more than any movie I've seen in the theater in the past couple years, has made me feel kind of like a dum-dum coming out of
Dude,
it.
no, I'm right there with you. I love to sound academic and smart and shit on this show. I'm coming out of this one I don't know if this movie is dumb or I am. I think it's me.
I
I'm
almost
right there with
feel
you.
like it's a little bit of both.
Yes,
But I will say,
but baby,
the vibes of this movie,
it vibes.
they're bad vibes.
They're bad.
Yeah, this is a bad vibes movie.
It is an A24 vibes movie, if it ever was. Yeah.
It's I would argue that it's Alex Garland's most vibes film to date.
I agree.
You're saying this is a slow burn, atmospheric horror movie about trauma, and it's by A24?
Oh, what? And to be clear, when I say atmospheric, I'm referring to the themes, not that this movie is ass.
No. There's plenty of ass in it, though.
There is.
Yes.
Lots of man
Some ass in
ass.
it. Yeah.
There's a lot of hanging dong.
A lot of hanging dong.
Yeah.
Dude hangs dong in that movie.
Which I respect.
I respect.
I feel like there's not enough
Crime.
hanging dong in movies these days.
So much hanging dong, you'd expect George R.R. Martin to be writing.
No, man, if I really had to sum this movie up, it's it's, you know, she goes to the house, you know, and then like there's a bit of crime and then penetration, crime, penetration, crime, penetration. Yeah. A lot of that.
Until the film just sort of ends.
It's funny because it's kind of true.
It's kind of true.
Not really penetration, but kind of whatever the reverse of that is.
Mind penetration.
Yeah, my mind was penetrated.
This movie fucked me in my brain full.
Yeah, you know, to quote Firestarter from last week, this movie has me brain fucked since birth.
Brain fucked since birth. Yeah. Brain fucked since birth, and then birth,
and then birth,
and then birth.
A girthy birth. God. Girthy birthy. It really sums up this movie.
If you haven't seen this movie yet, and you aren't titillated by the discussion so far,
the weird words that we're just saying right now, yeah,
I would, you know, say we'll give an early on spoiler warning. It's going to be hard to talk about
girthy birth alert.
I will say
it's coming.
As a vibes movie, and also just like how wild the last 15-20 minutes is. Like I think it's good to go in blind.
If you like being blindsided, yeah.
If you like being blindsided,
Yeah.
Which this movie does, and I think
I also
in a fun
feel like
way.
we're gonna struggle to explain sort of.
Yeah, it's just a whole movie. You're just going, what the fuck? What?
I mean,
the
I
fuck?
think I can compare this movie to a lot of movies that have come out somewhat recently. You know, it's almost reminiscent of Antichrist in some ways to me.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's reminiscent of Repulsion in some ways.
Definitely.
It's reminiscent of Mother in some ways with the
I can
religious
see that as
allegory
well. I can see
and
that as
kind
well.
of bad vibes, bat shittery.
I have
Yeah.
seen one of those three.
Well,
And yeah, it's really unfortunate I haven't seen Antichrist yet.
Well,
I'm gonna get around to that.
yeah, we have
You laugh.
talked about Mother on
The
this
expression
podcast.
on your face is incredible.
And
It
also
was-
Repulsion.
Yes.
well, yeah, Mother was on our very first episode.
I did actually listen to that episode. I was bad. I listened to that episode without watching the movie, but
Oh no!
I know it's bad form, but it's okay sometimes.
I think plenty of people did listen to this show without having watched the movies. I think that's kind of what we're for in a lot
Yeah.
of respects.
in some cases for sure.
Well, this is Alex Garland's first feature film in about 4 years since Annihilation came out in early 2018. In between Annihilation and this, we did get his mini-series on Hulu, Devs.
I think it's his best work.
I would agree.
Yes.
I think Devs is his best work. But I mean, I love Annihilation and Ex Machina.
Loads.
Yeah, so I mean, I was definitely excited for this one, and I liked this movie. I think I'm confident saying that I enjoyed the movie.
I am glad this movie exists.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time kind of summing up my feelings on it, right? Because like I think in terms of narrative, this is definitely Alex Garland's most abstract film.
Esoteric.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
and in terms
Assholeteric.
in terms of narrative, I still can't quite make heads or tails of it completely.
I don't think the
But
movie
in
can either.
terms
All the
of,
heads coming out of tails.
Well, that's part of the problem. I don't think the movie can completely either. And but in terms of vibes, I think it's phenomenal.
I don't think this is a movie that you're supposed to try to take literally.
Fuck no.
In terms of
You're
the
gonna have a
story,
bad
I don't
time
think
if you're
you
trying to take
really-
this movie
I don't think
literally.
you really can.
No.
In that regard, I think that it reminds me of kind of like a Gaspar Noé film, like Climax or Enter the Void, where it's like, in terms of story, it's like very, very simple and like sort of bare bones. And then the movie you just kind of have to take as like an experience and just like not interpret any of it literally, because none of it's supposed to be literal. Would y'all agree?
I mean, yeah, I feel like the thing is, though, this movie, it feels like it's trying to say something about men. And, you know, outside of men are stinky and men bad, I can't quite put my finger on exactly what it's trying to convey.
it's an interesting decision in terms of like story and message coming from like a male director. I agree with you. It feels like it is trying to say something about men and masculinity, toxic and otherwise, and the experience of being a woman in what is like essentially a man's world. But again, Alex Garland is a man, so
you know, in this circumstance, I kind of like that about it. I love films like from all perspectives.
I love films too.
Me too, right? Like it's,
From all perspectives.
Damn, we soulmates.
Cinematography, story, lighting.
No, but honestly,
sound.
I do love films that like approach this topic from all angles, and I think that this was an angle and perspective I hadn't really thought about before. And like, I mean, fuck, on the podcast, like how often do we, you know, like talk about those sorts of issues? And, you know, they come up like in our subject matter and our source material. And I think that it's a fun perspective to have. I don't think it's the most important perspective or whatever else, but like there's a billion movies out there. Like
this
there's
is an
something...
episode where I particularly wish we had a female perspective on Fourth Mic. Unfortunately, we don't. So we're going to do our best to suss this out. But I think the title is kind of misleading as well. Like, obviously, it's trying to say something about, like, how men and women perceive each other differently and whatnot. But, like, I think really more than that, it's about a man, which is, in this case, Jessie Buckley's husband. Like, I think the whole thing is just her coming to terms with his death.
Well, look, here you go. Here's why you're so right. Literally coming to term. You see? Yeah. I think that at the end of the day, I kind of feel like you're on it, but I also think that this film kind of like moves past that. Ugh, this is a very pretentious thing to say, but I think this movie moves past that to the point where it like transcends gender and just like views it as a construct, and like that's like by like the endless male birthing. You know, at the spoilers, I mean, we've already alluded to it like endlessly. We're going to have to start from the end to work our way back with this one in an endless birthing cycle. Like, but the endless birthing stuff at the end is like essentially reduces like gender to a construct. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, and I think that's like it's just like it's this weird chain of like the same man giving birth to the same man, right? Like it's clearly like just fucking boiling it all down to just meat. And I dig that. And I didn't really think about it that way until like right now. But...
I mean, I think the problem is though this movie is so full of,
a lot of them.
Metaphor and symbolism that it doesn't feel like there's clarity in a lot of it.
Hell no.
Like, no.
Hell no.
You know,
yeah.
And, you know, even with the birthing stuff, let's start from there. Like, for example, like, I can understand the reading of this kind of being generationally passed down misogyny and inherited traits of being male that are passed down and continued generation to generation. You know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so to speak. But it doesn't feel like there's a lot of clarity of, like, what the implication there is. And like the apple tree is another like loaded biblical piece of symbolism, you know, with the forbidden fruit literally mentioned in the movie.
Well, and in the Bible, it being explicit that Eve is the one who fucks up, right? She's the one who gets them thrown out of Eden for taking the apple. You know, it's the woman's fault, right?
So this movie, it's almost exclusively allegory. Like, it's an allegory kind of thinly tied to like a horror stalker plot. You know?
Yeah, it's an allegory that reveals itself as allegory. Like, it does kind of put on the pretense of, like, things literally happening, but by the end, it's like, you have to just kind of be like, none of this actually happened, you know? So,
I think that while the allegory does reveal itself to largely be allegory by the end of the film, I do think that the dreamlike editing persists from the beginning.
Yeah, so, sure,
like,
totally.
It does allow for you to sort of be brought, you know, into it and come to accept that that's what the film is doing pretty early on. I mean, really quickly we see that the whole town is populated by what's his face,
by Rory Kinnear. Just
Yeah.
every man is Rory Kinnear.
Yeah.
Even the like young schoolboy is just Rory Kinnear.
yeah, was CG Rory Kinnear, which
Very reminiscent of Meet the Clumps or Norbit.
It's the kind of thing that in most movies I would be like, oof, that looks bad, but
Uncanny.
It's the right kind
Unsettling.
of uncanny valley in this
to me,
instance.
it made me feel as uncomfortable as like the guy with the dog with the guy's face in Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah,
Like it gives the same kind of vibe.
I mean, well, yeah, because I mean, it's like definitely wrong. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this is.
It's one of those things where it almost feels quantum in that like it's both uncanny valley and creepy, but also funny.
Yes.
Like especially like the small child with the face deep fake
With with like an older man's face. Yeah.
It's funny.
There are a number of moments like that in this movie.
I mean, even
actually,
like the climactic sequence is both horrifying and also
And
fucking hilarious.
pretty funny, yeah.
Like, yeah, in one go.
I feel like for me, it's a lot of like nervous laughter. Like, what the fuck?
What the fuck is this movie doing?
Let's. I mean, because we're obviously gonna be all over the place. Let's just get like the basic premise out there. So Jessie Buckley is a recently widowed woman who is seeking sort of like an escape to the countryside to go stay in like a nice old manor in a little village so she can sort of like process her husband's death and heal from it and, you know, deal with that trauma and come out the other side. It's like a little escape. She gets to this village and all of the men are Rory Kinnear and they're all hostile in one form or another.
Toxic.
Not all of them are necessarily rapey, though a couple of them are, but even the ones that seem more benign are hostile in sort of like more subtle ways.
Yeah, like the priest implying that like her husband's death was her fault.
The priest is just the rapiest.
Yeah.
But even like, you know, Jeffrey, the first incarnation of Rory Kinnear that we see, who's like the landlord of the house, like he's pretty much throughout the whole thing like very friendly, but, you know, makes some sort of like passively misogynistic kind of comments and stuff like that, you know, sort of talking down to her a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny because he always does it like oh, here I go again, you know, kind of vibe, which is funny. But yeah, like down to like not letting her pay for things. You know, like
right.
at the bar,
and you know, like having to make sure she feels safe and protected. You know, when there's a strange man skulking around the house, you know, he has to be the one to go outside and say, "Now listen here, whoever you are stalking around, I don't take kindly to that." You know, like he feels the need to sort of be like a white knight sort of figure.
He's the most British.
Yes,
of the bunch.
yes.
Totally.
Yeah, I love like the going up the stairs, like, oh, it's very wibbly wobbly. You know, he says some stuff like that. Like all of his lines are so good as that character.
Yeah.
What I really liked is one of my favorite lines in the movie is early on. Oh, he keeps talking about scrumping.
Yes.
Which is great.
Scrumping.
Scrumping.
I don't even know what that means.
Stealing apples, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah, I guess
the context clues I pulled from that is scrumping.
Scrumping is stealing.
Stealing apples, I think, specifically.
Is it specifically apples?
I mean,
That's weird
it's
for
a
the
British colloquialism. I'm sure it is, right? It would be.
I mean, I can see it as being like slang
the
for
British would
stealing,
have
but
a
why would it be
specific word.
specifically apples?
Because the British would have a specific word for stealing apples called scrumping.
they're not the Germans.
Well, I mean, the Germans do have like a long word for everything, but like
Yeah.
the British are very like particular too in their own way. It's
Okay.
like, we can Google it.
What do you call it when?
I don't know this for sure. I am definitely guessing.
But what if you're stealing pears? What's it called then? Scrimping?
Scrounging.
Scrinkle?
Scramping.
Yeah, what do you want?
Scramping,
Just another weird salad word. That it definitely isn't actually a word, but is because
The
it's
British.
Yeah, like, but no. So her husband, when he's alive, is very toxic to her,
Yes.
and he leaves her in a very toxic situation where she's trying to get out of get out of this marriage. He's trying to get a divorce, and he just straight up tells her he'll kill himself if they have a divorce.
Sort of throughout the film, it flashes back to like their argument, like leading. We see his death right off the bat, and then we sort of see like what led up to it.
Yeah,
and
over time, it's revealed like the extent of how toxic that relationship actually is.
Yes, and it culminates with him throwing himself off of the roof while she watches from the window below.
Well, there's some ambiguity about whether he actually killed himself or he was trying, because she kicks him out of the apartment after he hits her.
He was trying to re-enter,
and the neighbors upstairs says he barged in and went out onto their balcony and tried to climb down onto their balcony underneath. So there's the ambiguity about whether he actually killed himself or whether he was just trying to climb down to the balcony, slipped because it was raining and fell to his death. I think I feel like it's more likely the second, because like we kind of see, we have the shot in slow motion of him falling, and there does seem to be like some kind of shock and confusion, like, and also like, let's be real, people who are like, if you leave me, I'll kill myself, are never actually going to kill themselves. They're just looking for attention.
It depends on the people, but talking from some, personal experience with some people I've spoken with in the past, but like, no, I do think, but what I really liked about that is he falls and he impales himself accidentally or not on the fencing below, and cutting forward to our lovely character we were talking about a moment ago. One of the things he says about the apple tree out front is best to eat them, otherwise they'll fall to the ground and spoil
and rot.
And it's a reference to what her husband did. He fell to the ground and spoiled, and I love that. Like, that's a really nice bit of dialogue that I picked up. And also, while we were chatting, sorry, but I did look up the definition, and guess what scrumping is? To steal fruit such as apples from trees.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah, I told you.
I can't believe
British
it.
as fuck.
I can't believe they have a specific word for stealing apples.
And the word is scrumping.
Scrumping.
Like, God, I love it.
Incredible.
Yeah. Scrumpalicious definition.
Yeah.
Make the apples go into my mouth.
The shot of him on the fence is so gruesome. It's brutal.
Yeah, it is.
It reminded me in some ways of Ari Aster stuff. Like, it felt like that, like, pure brutalist trauma. It feels so cruel to our main character.
Yeah,
that's such a trademark of Ari Aster.
True,
stuff. But it definitely informs kind of her perspective through the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
but I want to say as an aside as well, don't ever be that person to, use the "I'm gonna commit suicide if you leave me."
Hopefully that doesn't even need saying. Like, at that point, you're mad, toxic, and a shitty person. But like, wild how I really like. One of the things that gives that scene necessity of like seeing him corpseified in like a really horrifying manner is that we need to see the specific aspects of the injuries on the body, the broken foot, the slashed arm, etc. We need to see those aspects and details because they come into play very strongly later on in the film.
Very much so.
In a cool way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that just sort of like goes into my thesis that like this is not necessarily about all men. I mean, it is broadly, but that it's more about this one man, because I feel like the entity or whatever that is Rory Kinnear, that is just all of these men, like it's obvious, like there's something being said to the fact that it's all just like many aspects of like the same man, the same entity.
Green Man.
And I feel like it is ultimately just like the many aspects of like the things that she hated about her husband. It would obviously be way too on the nose to have all of the men look like her husband. You can't do that. But I think more broadly speaking, that they're all just like the same man is just like it's her
projecting
the things she hates about her husband onto all of these identical men.
Yeah,
you know?
And it's creepier because Rory Kinnear has British teeth.
Yes.
So,
well, he has particularly British teeth when he's Jeffrey. His teeth are a little better when he's the priest. I will say, like, Jesse Buckley is very good in this, but I think Rory Kinnear is the standout just because he has to play so many roles.
Yep.
And I think he somehow manages to make all of these characters feel distinct, despite the fact that they are all him. And I think that speaks well to his performance and the direction.
Well, and you know that the one homeless, naked running around character, he definitely distinct. Because he was stinky.
God damn it.
No, it's really funny too because Rory Kinnear has been in something else very recently, which is Our Flag Means Death, where he plays the antagonist who, spoilers for Our Flag Means Death, dies in the first episode, and then his twin brother comes back later. So Rory Kinnear has just been regularly playing like duplicates of himself this year. Like that's his whole deal, like across everything he's been in, which is very funny.
What if there are many Rory Kinnears? What if it's not just him playing many roles? Wow. What if there's just a lot of them?
We're just getting Rory Kinnear to the truth.
Oh,
incredible.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I definitely agree that, you know, this movie is heavy in allegory, and, you know, it's her processing her problems with, you know, the toxicity of the relationship and the grief from that and the trauma from that.
Yeah.
You know, it feels, like I said before, very much like Repulsion, where kind of the trauma of experiences they had before inform kind of their perspective on men as a whole.
Yeah.
Very much like Repulsion and kind of the sexual predatory stuff in that movie.
Every man's an antagonist.
And we get a lot of men as a whole, as in holes in men, because, you know, birth.
Oh.
Sure.
You're okay.
Look,
it's a bussy joke.
Yes, it's a bussy joke. We're full of them tonight, and it will continue.
Will be the
on.
first of many.
Yeah, I think. I should probably I was going to preface earlier, and I just kind of forgot. I'm running on like 3 hours of sleep for this one, so just particularly loopy on this one. Which this is a hell of a movie to watch. With only like 3 hours of sleep, I was like struggling to stay awake. Not any fault of the film. I was just very tired. But it's a vibe movie, so it did make it like even more difficult.
It's
at times.
slow,
and like,
burn.
you know me, I'm the biggest advocate for slow burns on the podcast, and but because of just prior circumstances, was just really having a hard time.
This was definitely a movie where like pretty much continuously throughout, I'm like, okay, I'm digging this, but it's really going to need to like stick the landing.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I checked my watch at one point because I have a smartwatch and I buzzed, and I noticed it was like 40 or 45 minutes into the movie, and nothing really happened. Like, that was like right when she got to the tunnel, essentially, and I was
it's
like,
45 in.
Oh man, I hope they do something.
Yeah,
like this has vibes, but like I hope it does something.
Well, it certainly does.
It does unravel. It does unravel in a very creepy and atmospheric way. I will say it does take a little bit to get going. Mm-hmm. But once it does, I'm on board.
Well, it's one of those instances where like I was saying, I feel like the climax has to justify the slow burn, where I'm just like, okay, this is cool, this is good, like this is vibes, I'm digging this, but like this needs to go somewhere, and I think it does. Like I think it
certainly goes somewhere.
I think the last 15-20 minutes of the film absolutely justifies the sort of crawl that it takes to get there. Yeah, because it's just like bombastic.
On the flip side, though, I feel like the sense of dread, I didn't really feel enough dread until the naked guy started appearing.
Sure.
With other movies of this ilk, so to speak, your Hereditary, your Midsummer, your etc. like I felt like those movies have such a sense of dread from the beginning.
Yeah.
Where like this movie, it feels like the opening shot of him falling to his death, you know, should give us a sense of dread, but it kind of falls flat for that. Pardon the pun, but you know, it doesn't feel like an oh shit stomach curdling moment.
Yeah,
You know? Compared to something like the family getting killed in Midsummer, for example, where like, your stomach is just in a knot because of how cruel it is.
it spends way more time with it too in Midsummer right off the bat. Yeah, you know, I see where you're coming from, and I agree with you in some regards. At the same time, I think that what it does accomplish by sort of like holding off on the dread a bit is it sort of gives it a chance to feel like, oh, you know, maybe this is the nice sort of like country pastoral like getaway that she needs. I mean, like, we've seen the trailer, we obviously know it's not. Yeah. But like the film does kind of like lull you into that false sense of security. Like, it's very beautifully shot, and like the locations are very nice too. And like that first day where she like goes out for a walk in the woods, like before she gets to the tunnel, and you know, it's like she does seem to feel like sort of like be letting some of that shit go. You know, she seems like she's happy a little bit, and then that's when like the weird creepy shit starts to happen.
Yeah, like,
it's just that it takes a long time to get
long
there.
Tunnel sequence where she's almost playfully,
which is great.
You know, kind of
sequence.
Playing with the echoes of the tunnel.
Baby back.
God damn it. And
Acapella.
That's when things really turn. But I do really love that sequence, like you said. I think that sequence is really well put together, and the sound design is incredible. The music in this movie is incredible. There's a bunch of choral pieces.
It's Alex Garland's usual composers. It's Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow, I want to say. Mm-hmm. They did the score for Annihilation and Devs, maybe Ex Machina. I can't remember if they did Ex Machina or not. But honestly, I think this might be my favorite score of theirs yet.
Really?
It's I mean, it's tough.
Have they worked on like some Denis Villeneuve stuff as well? Like, didn't they work on Arrival or something?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Villeneuve usually gets Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
I will say I like the score. It felt more invisible in this movie than something like the end of Annihilation, for example.
Yeah, totally.
Or even Devs. I think Devs has an incredible score.
Devs does have a really incredible score.
Noticeable.
Due for rewatch.
Well, I think that Annihilation. I think I definitely see some parallels between this film and Annihilation, just in terms of structure. Where like the ending of each is kind of a largely dialogueless, like very spectacular, surreal kind of climax where like the music really plays like a essential role. Annihilation especially, but I did feel the same way for this one too. Like that last 15 minutes or so, like that, the music there is really really excellent. And they do, like, I mean, in all of their scores they play with a lot of like choral stuff, but I love that like her sort of harmonizing with herself with the echoes in the tunnel becomes like a part of the score that like comes back later, that they use in the trailer as well. That stuff is really, really good.
Yeah. It's echoing back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also super neat that like there's like you can kind of make out like the patterning of a skull in the trees beyond the tunnel. I thought that was really cool.
Well, the idea of echoes.
Well, it's also it's a canal.
Like
also, yes,
for birth.
Yeah.
The echoes feel like a theme, you know, obviously with the kind of echoes of Rory Kinnear in different forms.
The echoes of her trauma coming back, her replaying these same things over and over again. Well, and that's another thing too, when her conversation with the priest before he says, you know, like, basically says that, like, you drove him to suicide, like, it's your fault. But, like, he's talking about her reliving the same thoughts, like, repeating the same things over and over again in her head, and that plays really nicely off that idea of, like, the echoing tunnel and it coming back, and then the end of just, like, a man giving birth to himself over and over and over again. It's like you keep replaying the same trauma over and over and over again until finally you have, like, a breakthrough, or you see something in a different light. Mm-hmm. It's nice. It's nicely handled.
It is.
It's thematic.
But,
I like a theme.
Yeah, it is almost entirely allegory.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it leads in with a bit of a plot, and then the plot just becomes allegory. And I think I really feel the need to compare this to another A24 film. Came out a couple years ago, fairly recently, that also did a lot with allegory, and that's The Lighthouse. Because The Lighthouse, by the end of it, is all allegory as well. Mm-hmm. He's on the rocks, being picked apart by birds, as Prometheus with the flame. You know, like,
sure, yeah.
Sorry, spoilers for the end of The Lighthouse, I guess. But, like,
we've talked about it on the podcast before.
We have. But there's something about The Lighthouse where the active narrative is so, like, regularly compelling.
Well, it's way more character driven.
Way more.
It's way more character driven. This movie is not. Like,
well, which is interesting because, again, like, of all the Bart Sneely, or what's his name?
Rory Kinnear.
Rory Kinnear. I love the Rory.
Bart Sneely's a pretty good one, though.
Yeah, all the Rory Kinnear, like, parts. Like on paper, it feels as character driven. But
I mean,
it just, I don't know, like, they're back and forth.
No,
like,
they're all.
The main character is so distant.
They're all just like misogynist archetypes. They're not really characters.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of by design. They're not supposed to have depth.
But I think
they're
that's
supposed to be surface level because she's engaging. That's how she's engaging with it.
That's partially the problem too, though. Like, I feel like because of that, it feels a little more shallow.
There's not much in terms of, like, point of relation.
Yeah.
I mean.
And I think the ambiguity and discussion starter element is kind of a double-edged sword because, like, it does foster interesting discussions with that, but I feel like it's ambiguous to a point where I don't know if there's completely a through line there like there is with The Lighthouse. I feel like The Lighthouse... I've said this before on other episodes, but it feels like it has a clarity of purpose.
Yes.
This is another moment where I wish we had, like, a female perspective, because I say that, like, I feel like there's not a good point of relation, but I also feel like I'm saying that very much as, like, a man, because I feel like a lot of women would be able to pretty easily relate with, like, Jessie Buckley's character, because I feel like a lot of women experience these kind of interactions with men on, like, a daily basis. So I wish that we had that perspective to sort of speak on that, because I do kind of agree that, like, it's not really a character-driven story, and so, like, outside of the vibes, like, it is kind of hard to find something for me to connect with. Mm-hmm. But I don't feel comfortable saying that like, objectively, you know.
I'm going to point to where, like, this, because this film is so exclusively allegory, it is really hard for me to not find it a little pretentious. And I think it's time we use that word, because it kind of is. Like, and I think Alex Garland has always towed the line for me when it comes to, like, being a little pretentious.
Yeah, Devs
like,
is kind of
Devs
pretentious.
really gets close.
Yeah.
And, like, I think, but I think that Devs gets past it for a number of reasons, largely, again, because of, like, the performances, and, like, conceptually, I was really fascinated by Devs.
I think because this one's the most abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pretension comes through,
and for me, like, it's just, like, that everything that like he normally otherwise brings to the table with Annihilation, with the plot and all the other things. Like Annihilation, like again, has like such a core vision with like it being like, oh, the thing is a cancer. Like we understand. Like you can boil Annihilation down.
Well,
but with this film, like because it's so abstract, because it's so allegoric, that pretension is really front and center.
Well,
I
think the thing about Alex
harder for me.
I think the thing about Alex Garland is that he's always been a quote unquote high concept dude.
Yes,
like all of his shit is high concept, which is very easy to stray into pretentious territory.
Yes.
But what I think in a lot of his shit, what really grounds it and keeps it from feeling too pretentious is that he writes characters really well. I think all of the characters in Ex Machina, like the sort of interplay between Domhnall Gleeson and Oscar Isaac is really good. Obviously, like Devs has a really good cast of great characters.
Natalie Portman is amazing in Annihilation.
Yeah, the characters in Annihilation are a little dry, but
even still, like all of them are worked up in some capacity,
and also
like, really cool thematic moments.
You know, Annihilation has source material as well, but like this, as the least character driven of Alex Garland's films, does lack some of that like grounding that lets like some of the high concept stuff get like a little harder to grasp, I think.
Yeah, and you know, I want to be charitable, and I want to kind of explore the perspective of each version of Rory Kinnear being a different form of toxicity in men. So, for example, obviously the naked vagrant is kind of sexual toxicity, but
yeah,
also
its most base form.
Well, yeah, I think the naked version, the naked hairless version, is sort of like the clay is supposed to be like the clay from which all of the others are sculpted. Yeah. That's the base. So
the Green Man forms out of him.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like this
that
like
is
pagan origin. This like the universal root of man.
It is just like man at its basest. You know, that idea. And then all of the different forms are kind of like molded out of that idea to like different strains of like
the same man,
bad masculinity. Yeah,
man, the Green Man, that shit, that was pretentious. I gotta say it. Like that felt like mother territory. Like,
oh, you thought so? Really?
Yeah, it felt
interesting.
Like, oh, Mother Nature. You know, like that's what they did in Mother. Like they had like a mother character. And this felt like the nature character.
So I would agree, but like I haven't seen Mother, in fairness, but like with the way I'm hearing it described, like it strikes me as like it's just purely like Americana, like right, like he's just saying like it's nature in general, right? But like here with like the Green Man has like at least like some degree of like pagan roots, and like there is a little bit more to that culturally, like
as like the
Britain.
idea of like primordial man,
like pre-Christian like origins of like Druidism and other like folk religions like from that era that like predate civilization, and so I get it. I don't disagree, but like I do I do get it, like and like it is very relevant, and how like even and I do kind of like how like he does present like the green, like that face of the Green Man, like in that cool like weird stone vase thing with the two
like
sides.
The altar, yeah,
the altar. He presents it first in a Christian church, but then like towards the end, we also see it in many locations in her vision.
Yeah.
And it's for that same reason that like,
importantly, it's got the face of the Green Man on one side, and then on the back, it's got a female figure like giving birth, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that pussy air out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
holding that pussy open.
Yeah,
but like that character does end up containing, like as you mentioned earlier, Cleveland, like both. It contains both the masculine and the feminine.
Transgender, it just reduces it down to like its core components.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it's just both of them, and that's the horror, right?
Yeah.
Like, which is cool. I really like that.
I don't disagree with you on like the historical context
Better
and
not.
complexity of that.
I'll fight you.
But the thing is, like, the utility in the story is it's nature essentially at its core, right? Like it's
Human nature.
Yeah, essentially that's what they're kind of going for with it.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's like base rather than necessarily nature. I mean, like, obviously all life springs from nature, so it makes sense to have that the root. But like, yeah, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's trying to say like this is like nature necessarily, is like this is the wellspring, like this is where it all starts. That's what it feels like. I said,
Yeah.
it's like the clay that man is formed
Yeah,
from.
what's the origin
which
of all
is-
this toxicity? Where does it begin?
which is, of course, entwined with nature or whatever.
Yeah.
There is that pagan concept. I can see the mother comparison. I don't know if it's just because I think Alex Garland is a better storyteller than Darren Aronofsky, but I certainly find it less frustrating in this movie than I do in
both
Mother.
movies are vibes movies, and I respect
true.
both of them
It's
in
true.
a lot of ways for that. I think both of them, their core weakness is the narrative, but that's all right.
Yeah.
In spite of that, I think movies work.
I think Mother is way more pretentious than this. Like, this absolutely has its pretension, but I think Mother is a way more pretentious film overall.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're both pretty pretentious. I think with
What do you think?
the core rebirthing, like we mentioned before, there's some weirdness about Alex Garland being the one to spin the tale of, this white man spinning the tale of toxic masculinity.
Right.
And generational toxic masculinity at that. But
Let me sing you. Well, you see, here's the kind of the fun part, though. It sounds almost like he's going for a "let me sing you the song of my people" kind of thing. He's
Sure.
like, "Here, look at this thing that I'm a part of," and putting it on display.
Sure.
And I think that's how I read it. And I think that's where like I give it a pass. I don't really care.
I think that's where I can give it a pass too. It doesn't feel preachy. I think it's like, yeah, there's some pretension there, and I can absolutely agree with that. And I do think that like this does feel like a story that like maybe a man is not the most equipped to tell, but it doesn't feel like it's trying to be. It doesn't feel self-righteous.
I mean, like, again, like, this movie doesn't.
Which I was a little bit worried about going in based on the trailer, and
the
like
title.
the movie's called Men, and it's like
Yeah.
it's like, listen, Alex, like, you're a man, like, what are you trying to say here?
Well, but here's the thing,
But,
like,
it doesn't. I feel like it does succeed in not being self-righteous.
Well, here's the thing too. Like, here's the beauty of it. Like, there are many more movies out there. Like,
Sure.
like, just because this movie exists, it doesn't like prevent other movies from existing. Like, any other directors
Yes, it does.
can still.
No other movies exist
God,
now.
it's taking the platform away from.
This is the only movie.
Like, but like, no, like it allows for like there's plenty more room in the discussion. There's plenty more room in cinema for like other people to from all walks of life to tell this same story in many different ways.
This is just Alex's take.
Yeah, this is just his take, and like,
This is just Alex, unfiltered.
I frankly, beyond that, could give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
I think, and it's fine. Everyone gets a voice at my table, and like, including Alex Garland, and whether I agree with it or not. I
That's
wanna hear it.
generous of you.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you're giving Alex Garland a space to share
he
his
has such a
thoughts
big
and
table.
ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say I had a good table.
Oh, okay.
It's like one of those
There's just
plastic.
space.
table.
It's like one of those plastic fold-out ones.
It's
not-
just big. There's a lot of
It's
space at the
a lot of
table.
people
Yeah.
sitting on a lot of people's laps.
Yeah,
let's just say.
yeah, exactly. Giving endless birth. So, let's can we please talk about the endless birth? Like, technically,
Sure.
like, I need to. I need to talk about it. I need to let it out, like an endless version of myself.
Pull a foot out of your pussy.
Yep. just right out. God, that was insane. That happened, didn't it?
Yeah.
I'm still processing this movie. So yeah, she is beset by all the men at once. By the end, it kind of all culminates. Even the nice one is like trying to hunt her down in her own car.
Well,
and
in fairness, she does run him over first.
yeah, but not really intentionally. Like she's just
Not
trying to get out of
intentionally,
there.
but she does.
And
She ran over Jeffrey.
yeah, and of course he becomes the Green Man, and then, or the hobo sort of becomes the Green Man, and then the Green Man begins to give birth, and his belly gets all big and shit, like, and the prosthetics are insane.
I will say
the makeup and like CG, I could not tell where it
I
started.
think the
and ended.
execution of it is fantastic.
It's insanely
the one
well
thing I
done.
want to say going into that too is the way they kind of present all of the men becoming one is really crazy. Like one of them in stalking her like runs towards the door and she slams it shut and it like grabs her through the mail slot.
Yeah.
And she stabs him through the arm and he pulls the arm out, just essentially like splitting his whole
arm in two. Yeah, through the hand.
It feels like that
agonizingly
from
too. It's
Saw 5, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yes, you're
Where-
correct.
Where they have to put
Their hands in the
table saw
yeah,
or
exactly
whatever,
Oh,
to
to
collect
get
and
blood,
like
yeah.
split
to
their
collect the
hand.
blood. Yeah, and it's agonizing too.
Yeah.
It's so slow him pulling the arm out and like splitting his hand.
And
But
then
yeah,
after
it's
the
like
car crash, like he breaks his leg.
well, important. I think what Ben's getting at is that like. Once that happens, as she starts seeing all of the different men, they all share the same wound. They all have the split arm, and then that carries over to when she hits him with the car, he breaks his ankle.
Yeah, but that hand is used, later on too with the priest, for example.
Oh God, yeah.
In that horrifying scene where he's grabbing her by his split hand, both parts of his hand
On either side of her neck. Yeah, that is
made
that is
grimace.
repulsive.
Ugh.
Yeah, that whole scene is very uncomfortable because he's giving a monologue, essentially like doing that thing where men blame women for like them being attracted to them.
Yeah.
as if it's like a level
All
of
just for existing.
of a control that the women wield over men. It's like look at what you've done. You've made me horny. How dare you, you stupid bitch? Like it's
Worse than that, you made me fantasize about when you lost your virginity.
Yeah, it's-
implying that it's him thinking about her underage, which is
Yeah, it's-
even more insidious.
it's very very nasty. It's very 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 nasty.
Super creepy.
I
Which just-
love the hand prosthetic. It's very graphic and like visceral.
Ooh yeah, so gross.
And like you see the viscera in the hand every time it cuts to it. I love kind of having that through line.
Well, and then it retains mobility of the fingers
Yeah.
too. When that kind of wound would you would not be able to use your hand. But like you said, he puts the hand it's on either side of her neck. Oh man, it's so awful.
Yeah, and it makes every man character in that whole sequence all the more grotesque and menacing because it's a clear indicator that they are the same one.
Yeah.
It feels like an unstoppable force.
Yes. And then the birthing occurs.
Well, and they retain their wounds through every birth too.
Through every birth, yeah. So the Green Man, he gets all fucking birthy, and then it's the priest.
He's
and then
inflated
it's
like
the
a
youth, and
like
then
a
it's-
Sonic.
He really, really is.
This is like
How did you
Sonic
feel about
inflation
that,
porn.
Cleve, as our resident vor expert?
How could you? Why would you do that? How could you? What the fuck? I don't know. As a resident Sonic fanfic expert, how do you feel about that, asshole? I can do that. I can do this shit all day. I can go back and forth.
Well, the important question: Did it make you guys horny?
No.
Did anybody get horny?
No, this is not like a T-Tan situation.
That pussy be popping.
Yeah.
Do I make you horny, baby?
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. That scene, that Austin Powers scene would have been very different if it ended with an endless birth.
Got similar teeth.
Yes.
Well,
but
the fat bastard was just moments away.
He
They cut her.
but yeah, we see it in full. It's almost like a cow giving birth. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's so removed of all humanity. Like it just becomes this like horrifying process that we're forced to watch, that our protagonist is like very slowly backing away from. It's like each one is like crawling towards her, and then like before it can like get any closer, it has to then give birth.
Yeah.
And then it continues again, and it's just one of the other men we've seen previously.
Well,
What I find
what is like particularly
Oh, go ahead.
creepy is like I think the third part of the cycle is like the boy. You know, also
Yeah.
like that was pretty fucked
And
up.
what's most grotesque and visceral about it is every time the birth happens from a different part of the body.
Well, yeah, it ends up like the first couple, like it seems sort of like a normal birth, like an orifice opens up like between its legs. But then once it gets into the house, at that point, it's just like then a vagina just opens up on its back and it just births something,
coming
and
out of the mouth.
or coming out of the mouth, which is the last one, which is and like it just goes on and on and on. It's
Well,
like
what's
so
wild-
slow.
What's wild too is like
And
all
agonizing.
of these dudes are like naked, right? They're
Yeah.
all naked, and I mean the same dude, I guess. Like, but like the first one with the green man too, like, or maybe it's the second. I don't know. It's such a blur. But like it's like straddle back, and like it's like dick is flopping around like in the air. You know, did y'all see that?
Oh yeah, there's some floppy dong for
Yeah,
sure.
there's a lot of floppy
there's,
dong.
There's plenty
in
of
this.
floppy
Like,
dong.
It does not shy away.
Yeah.
Unlike The Northman, this movie does not shy away from some floppy dong.
No, they did not CG out the dongs in this one. They hung the dong.
Yeah, they hung.
They hung the dong.
Yeah, which is wild.
One of the elements that perplexed me the most out of this sequence is seeing Jesse Buckley's kind of almost nonchalance watching it. Like, there's some confusion.
Yeah.
But it seems like her reaction to it is pretty subdued for what is occurring in front of her.
I think
At
it's like
that
at that point,
point-
she's just overwhelmed.
yeah,
It's
I
just
feel
like, oh,
it
well,
feels
here we
it
are.
feels like a shock reaction. 'Cause,
Also,
like,
she's been like drugged by the Green Man, because there's a bit where the Green Man like blows the
dandelion,
dandelions,
yeah.
because they would dandelion sperm and egg and all that, like, and she inhales the dandelion to kind of make the character seem like she's been drugged or whatever, so that she can be more catatonic, like just witnessing these events.
But, I mean, the thing for me is that scene feels so much like her kind of processing.
yeah. Well,
you
it's
know-
it's the acceleration of
Yeah.
her grieving process.
Yeah, so seeing her in this contextualized with her nonchalance, it felt kind of confusing to me. That's one of the elements that I was kind of confused about, in that, like, it felt so subjective through her perspective that seeing her kind of no-sell it.
In the moment, yes, I also found that kind of confusing, but I think with the context of where it ends up, it feels like it makes more sense to me, because it is like an acceleration of her processing what happened. Because I mean, the ultimate culmination of this is that eventually one of the Rory Kinnears gives birth to her husband. And like that's the whole point with like the wounds, like his arm was like split in the same way from landing on the fence.
Yep.
His ankle was broken in the same way. So these men end up having the same wounds as he does, and every time one is birthed anew, you know, it has the same wounds, and it's going through all of these men until finally it's not Rory Kinnear anymore, it's her husband who has the same wounds. So like it feels like this is a acceleration of her grieving process or her coping or whatever you want to call it, that like she's been so overwhelmed by the fear and the terror up till this point that like at a certain point it's just like it just keeps coming rapid fire and she is just like working through it. Well, because like the end of the movie ends, you know, with her husband walking in and sitting down and be like, look at what, like, this is what you did to me. Look at me. And she's just like, what do you want? And he's like, I want your love. And she's like, oh, yeah.
All right.
And it's kind of it. It's like that's her like stripping away all the layers of like why was this motherfucker behaving the way he was? Why does this? Where does this behavior come from? Like what's at the root of it? And it's just a petulant child's desire to be loved. That's it. That's all it is. And then that's her realization that she's like, oh, yeah.
And then impact font credits.
Men. Well, and then have her friend showing up.
Yes, her friend showing up, and I love this because earlier when she'd been talking to her friend on the phone, which was sort of spliced throughout the film as her friend being like, "Oh, hey, should I be worried about you?" She recaps to her friend.
She's FaceTiming her friend.
She's FaceTiming her friend, and there's a moment where her friend says, and it caught me kind of interesting, is where she says like, hey, it's cool, I'll come up there with you. I'll make this time a little bit better since you're having a bit of a rough time of it or whatever. Like, I'll watch you drink, etc. And I was like, interesting thing to note or whatever.
Yeah, she says, I'll watch you get pissed.
Right. You're right. And so it's like, oh, British for drink.
Yeah, getting drunk, yeah.
And I was like, okay, interesting. Is she, like, formerly an alcoholic? Whatever, what's going on with that? And then, of course, when she shows up at the end, she's pregnant. Yeah. She's going to give birth to a man.
Well, we don't know that.
Birth to a man. That'll give birth to a man.
She might give birth to a girl. Yeah. But I mean, I think that for me just kind of like cements like the whole like climax of like watching these men give birth to each other over and over again. It's like that's where that's coming from in her head, is like her friend's pregnant. Mm-hmm. So she's got pregnancy on the brain, so that's why she's imagining like dealing with this as like these men just giving birth to each other over and over again. the Broroboros.
The Broroboros. Yeah.
Can we talk about
the
video calls and the T-Mobile spooky face that keeps coming?
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
What was that?
Encroaching men.
That's men coming.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yep.
Damn, they be listening.
Because, like, yeah, the calls, like, the FaceTimes keep breaking up, and, like, through sort of, like, the pixelatedness, you can see, like, a man's face, like, screaming. It's kind of, like, it's cool. I don't really know what it, like, is necessarily supposed, like, what the purpose of that is. It's kind of spooky. I dig it visually. But
nasty, spooky, angry man.
Yeah, nasty, spooky. I mean, there's a lot of nasty, spooky, angry man in here. Yeah.
How about that gender swap Snapchat filter?
Damn, how about it?
How about it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole friend thing seemed like a total MacGuffin. Like, it's just her recapping and kind of, grounding in the story.
It's a sympathetic female presence.
Yes,
that's what it needs.
Yeah.
It's a sympathetic female presence.
I don't mind it.
It's fine. I mean, she doesn't serve much of a narrative purpose. It's a grounding thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is, the purpose of it is a sympathetic female presence, and that's what it is. And I guess there's kind of something similar with like one of the police officers is a woman, and she seems kind of sympathetic, but that doesn't really that felt like it's something like that's so heavily like male dominated around this one woman. Like I was kind of surprised to see like the one female police officer.
I'm glad they didn't give her Rory Kinnear face.
Well, I think it's so that
I wish they had.
It's to kind of ease into the Rory Kinnears where like he's shown a little bit there, but like they need to have that conversation with the police
they're
officer.
Still kind of that's fair. They're still kind of easing into it.
I think that's the reasoning for it. You guys ever seen Kind Hearts and Cornets?
No, what the fuck is that?
It's a super old movie. I might have mentioned it before on the
Alex
podcast.
Guinness is in that, right?
Alec Guinness is every character in it, which is why I bring it up.
Awesome.
It's like Alec Guinness is Alec Guinness is Alec Guinness, and it's him playing a destitute member of like a wealthy lordship family. It's been a long time since I've seen this, so I'm probably gonna get some details wrong, but it's him killing off all of his relatives so that he can be next in line for the money, like for the lordship or whatever it is, or just like the, you know, like the wealth of the family. And so it's him killing off all of his rich relatives that he also plays, which is hilarious. So like it's pretty great. It really reminded me of that. That same idea of like him killing off himself like over and over again. It was very fun.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like starring someone else and like Alec Guinness plays all of the I forget. I'm probably getting some details wrong, but I know it's got like all the people getting killed off are the same actor at the very least.
Yeah.
But it's a really fun idea, and yeah, that's Kind Hearts and Cornets. So I thought I'd just like gonna briefly mention it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a much better movie than a lot of the
I think you said this one.
the multi-character.
Yeah, like killing off all your rich relatives.
Movies.
Well,
Jack and
it's an
Jack
anti-hero.
and Jill, or the Medea movies.
Yeah,
or,
fuck those. Like this is fun.
Norbit.
He's murdering all his relatives. Like it's
the
it's
Nutty Professor.
yeah. Like it's a way better premise than all of those, I think.
I mentioned it briefly earlier, but I want to emphasize the end credits of this movie use Impact font. The third memeiest font after Comic Sans and
Papyrus?
And Papyrus.
Yeah.
Why
Impact.
did you do this, Alex Garland?
Because he's trying to make an impact, Ben.
Damn. You know, when I
Did you think about it
when
when
I
you
tried
saw
to make
Men? Did you
a
think about it?
serious essay in middle school, I would use Impact font on the PowerPoint presentation because that's how you know it's important.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
What's your point? It sounds like you understand. I don't know. I don't know what what your problem
I turned
is.
13, so
Are we ready to rate this?
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
yeah, I guess.
Alright.
I don't know if I have a rating, but I'll see what comes to.
Yeah, I think it's like over time, as I think about it more, it could be subject to change in either direction, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially in like a movie like this that's like so largely abstract, I feel like this is one that'll probably grow on me a little bit more than anything else.
Yep.
And you know, like that was kind of the case with Annihilation as well. I would say that to date, this is probably my least favorite Alex Garland output.
Yeah.
That being said, like he sets a very high bar, so like I didn't dislike this movie at all. Overall, I pretty thoroughly enjoyed it, but I agree that it lacks some clarity of purpose. It's a little too abstract. It's not quite character grounded enough for me, and it is a little pretentious. But overall, like, great bad vibes, really good performances, fantastic score, beautifully shot, definitely fucking weird. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5, I think.
On the ride home, I was contemplating how I would approach rating a movie like this because in my head I could easily rate it anywhere from a 2 to a 4.5. And you know, be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I will say, like, I do respect a lot of what Alex Garland is going at in terms of pure vibes. You know, the influences that he's pulling from in Repulsion and Antichrist. Great stuff. This movie is very atmospheric. It feels like the most shallow of Alex Garland's movies in terms of what it's trying to say. I feel like there's a lot more discussions to be had with all of Alex Garland's other work. Whereas this, I feel like it's open-ended, but I feel like it doesn't feel as deep as something like Devs or Ex Machina or Annihilation. But I will say, few other directors do stuff like this, and this is him at his most abstract and vibey, and I respect that in some ways. It's not a perfect movie. There's stuff I really don't like, in terms of narrative, but you know what? I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Ditto that. 3.5 out of 5. I don't have anything else to add.
All right, well.
Chili's. Baby back ribs.
You keep
Barbecue
doing
sauce.
it, and it's based off of a totally unrelated conversation that we were having before this, that the average listener of this podcast has zero context for.
I don't care, it's still
As
funny.
a joke, it does not
What are
make
you
sense.
talking about, Matisse?
Yeah.
That was the motif of the score of the movie.
That's right, you're right. It was all about baby back
Just,
ribs.
every time she looked around her shoulder after walking through the woods, thinking there might be a stranger in the background, just very quietly in the distance, Chili's.
They spent a lot of money on that brand partnership, okay?
Baby back ribs, barbecue sauce. Yeah.
All right, well, that'll give men
It's like a Capella.
an average of 3.7 out of 5 pods.
We have prediction results.
Do we?
Firestarter.
Oh, we have for Firestarter. That's right. I was gonna say
yeah.
it's opening weekend for men. But yeah,
For men.
Firestarter. You're right.
Okay, well, let me pull
Men-
up
we're men in tights.
the list here.
Manly
I do
men.
have it. Do you guys remember what we
No.
gave a collective rating for Firestarter
No.
for?
I want to say it was 1.8,
Okay.
1.7.
Good.
Okay, this shouldn't be close regardless. So I'll start with collective rating because I have it up right now. I predicted this would be a 3 out of 5. TC predicted 3.2, and Cleveland,
Oof.
you predicted 4.
Well, I didn't get it.
So I got that.
We were
one.
all way off.
Yeah.
Way off.
So Rotten
We were all
Tomatoes,
optimistic.
I predicted 60. TC predicted 64.
Oh.
And Cleveland, you predicted 80.
Here it is, yeah.
Same deal, huh?
It's an
Yeah.
11.
Holy shit!
Wow!
An 11?
Wow.
That is incredible.
Not doing well.
I don't think people are wrong.
I'm
but
not surprised, but
holy
that's funny as shit.
That's
Yeah.
so funny.
Oh, man.
Well, box office, I predicted 44 million. TCU predicted 36 million. And Cleveland, you predicted 75 million.
Yeah, because I thought we were doing global.
Opening weekend, it was 3.8 million.
Wow. I think just across the board, this was the biggest whiff for all of us.
Done.
In every single category, the person who won was who happened to pick the lowest, but we all overshot
Miles.
dramatically in
Yeah.
every single category.
Wow.
We had
Went
obviously
far.
we obviously had such higher hopes for this. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so... Oh,
Well, next week is a Patreon pick, and this next episode comes courtesy of our newest Patreon subscriber, our newest honorary pod boy, Zach Confer, has chosen for us a movie called Black Mountainside that I don't think any of us have ever heard of.
Yeah.
oh.
It came out in 2014. The synopsis sounds interesting, but I've never fucking heard of this movie. So it's going to be a true wild card going in.
Awesome. I'm excited.
So
I have no idea what to expect. So.
nope, me either. Zero expectations, no fucking clue. Don't know anything about this movie.
Step on a rope.
So tune in next week for a wild card episode, courtesy of honorary pod boy Zach. It is time for the sponsor.
Right. Oh, this week is brought to you by Baby Back. Thanks. All right.
Say baby back, thanks.
Jeez. I want you to read this sponsor.
You want me to read it?
Yeah. So we just did the Chili's thing, right?
Yeah.
The card! I can't make this shit up! I pulled this at random!
It's Big Chili!
I'm crying!
How does this happen?
It was meant
What
to
is
be
going on?
a true birthing.
We just rebirthed Chili's!
The sponsor shelf rebirth chili.
Big Chili's! We picked it random after making the Chili's joke! Big Chili's!
How does
Yes!
how does this happen?
I don't know!
This is a little frightening.
I'm scared!
I'm a little scared, honestly.
Scared! Oh
Becoming
no!
too powerful.
The sponsor shelf is... Oh...
Big Chili.
This episode is brought to you by Big Chili's.
What's the tagline?
Big.
Baby big chili back. Chili big ribs. They're big.
Chili's baby big rib.
What does that happen?
All right.
I'm crying. I'm fucking crying, man. This is the funniest goddamn thing that's ever happened for the sponsor, I swear. It's a wild ones, but like just like pulling Big Chili immediately after singing the Chili song is just gonna
After a total non sequitur Chili's reference that has zero context to anything we've been talking about in the fucking
you were
episode.
giving me shit over like how like Chili's doesn't have any context, and then I pulled Big Chili.
No, this was I take it back. This was predetermined.
Yeah, it was ordained.
This is divine intervention.
Divine Chili-vention.
Anyway, we need to end this soon.
We need to go.
That'll bring us to the end of this week's episode. If you like the show and you love Big Chili's, then be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can support us at patreon.com/podpeoplepod. Shout out to our honorary pod boys, Sam Simon and Zach Confer. We appreciate you guys as always. You can follow the show on Twitter at PodPeoplePod and at letterboxd.com/PodPeoplePod, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. You can find me on Twitter at SomeSpookySnake.
I'm on Twitter at Mr. Sheets.
And I'm occasionally tweeting for Big Chili's. I'm occasionally tweeting for Lighthouse Studios. We put out progress on It Stares Back. You can also find my work via DreadXP. Most recently, DreadX Collection 5 is out. Go check it out. It is super fun and cool. It's entertainment horror themed. It's 12 different games by 12 different incredibly talented devs. And I did the cover art for the game and all of the cool spooky posters and things inside of the alien themed sort of like an alien themed Chuck E. Cheese. It's called Outpost 3000.
It's a pizza planet, like
yeah,
in Toy Story.
Yeah, it's like all of those things, and it's really fun. Except legally distinct from all of them, please.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, it was super fun to work on, and I do recommend checking it out. And that's it for me.
All right, well.
Can we do one more time all together?
Chili's. Baby back men.
With barbecue sauce.